Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss any more shocking and captivating stories. Enjoy watching. Ryan had always prided himself on his ability to stay calm under pressure. As a successful real estate agent in the suburbs of Chicago, he had built a life with his wife, Emily, that many would envy. Their house was beautiful. Their daughter Lily was growing up smart and kind, and everything seemed, at least on the surface, perfect. But as the years passed, something started to feel off, like a subtle crack forming in a seemingly perfect facade. It started small. A few weeks ago, Ryan had come home from work earlier than usual to find Emily's car parked in the driveway when she told him she'd be out for drinks with some colleagues. It was nothing to be suspicious of at first, but the gnawing feeling in the back of his mind refused to let him rest. He brushed it off, convinced he was just being paranoid. But then the small things kept adding up. Emily began staying late at work more often, and when she wasn't working, she was often on her phone. Ryan noticed the way she'd swipe away texts whenever he'd come near her, the nervousness in her eyes when he asked about her day, the sudden need for privacy. She had become more distant in their conversations, avoiding any deep or personal talks that had once been the bedrock of their relationship. Ryan tried to dismiss it. After all, life was stressful, especially with a young daughter, a career, and the constant demands of their social circle. But the tension between them was palpable, and no matter how hard he tried to ignore it, it kept building. One night, after a long day of trying to sell a property and dealing with clients who seemed to want everything for nothing, Ryan returned home to an empty house. Emily was at her yoga class, she had told him. Lily was with her grandmother for the weekend, and the house was quiet, eerily so. That's when it happened. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A new text. Emily's name flashed across the screen, but when Ryan opened the message, his heart froze. The words that greeted him were not from Emily. "I miss you so much. I can't stop thinking about our last time together. Let's make it happen again this week. I can't wait to feel you again." Ryan's hands went numb. He read the message again, his eyes scanning it like they were searching for any sign that it wasn't real. But the words were unmistakable. There was no denying it. His wife, the woman he had been married to for over a decade, had been hiding something dark and secret. And it was all right there in front of him. For a few seconds, everything seemed to stand still. His mind was racing, trying to process what he had just read. There was no mistaking it. This wasn't some random spam message or an accidental text sent to the wrong number. This was from someone who knew Emily intimately. The intimacy of the words, the urgency behind them, left Ryan with only one conclusion: Emily had been seeing someone behind his back. His heart pounded in his chest as the anger began to rise, but something else came with it: fear. Not just fear of losing his wife, but the fear of what he might do if he confronted her. He had always trusted Emily completely, never even considering the possibility of betrayal. Now that trust felt shattered, and he didn't know how to begin to fix it. But Ryan wasn't one to act rashly. He needed answers, not assumptions. So he set the phone down, his hands trembling as he tried to gather his thoughts. He had to think this through carefully. He couldn't just confront Emily on a hunch, he needed proof. Solid, irrefutable proof. Ryan decided that he would keep his suspicions to himself for now. He would watch and wait, see what he could uncover without Emily suspecting a thing. He wasn't sure how, but he knew that the truth was out there. And he was going to find it. As he stared at the phone, the text message glowing on the screen, Ryan's mind raced. Who was this man? How long had this been going on? And what would it mean for his family if he uncovered the truth? He couldn't tell Emily yet, not until he had all the pieces. But there was no going back now. His marriage, the life he had known, was about to be turned upside down. Ryan spent the next few days in a fog, his mind constantly replaying the message over and over. He tried to focus on work, to push the thought of Emily's betrayal out of his mind, but it was impossible. His every conversation with her felt like a lie. Every smile she gave him, every kiss she planted on his lips, felt fake, hollow. How had he missed the signs? Every night after Emily went to bed, Ryan stayed awake, scrolling through the phone, searching for more clues. He wanted answers. But each time he thought he had found something concrete, it slipped away like sand through his fingers. The messages from Dylan, the man behind the texts, were cryptic, vague enough to give him no clear answers. They were careful with their words, trying to hide the affair in plain sight. But Ryan was determined to peel back the layers, to get to the heart of it. One afternoon, as he was sitting at his desk, Ryan's phone buzzed again. He hesitated for a moment, then picked it up. It was another message from Emily's phone, but this time, the sender's name was Dylan. The message was short, just one line, but it hit Ryan like a ton of bricks. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be there after your meeting." Ryan's breath caught in his throat. This time there was no mistaking it. Emily was meeting this man tonight. The truth was as undeniable as the air in his lungs. She was lying to him, sneaking around behind his back, and he had the proof in his hands. He sat there for a long moment, staring at the text message, trying to come to terms with what it meant. The words were like a punch to the gut, and yet, in some strange way, he felt a twisted sense of relief. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't imagining things. The woman he had loved, the mother of his child, had been betraying him for who knows how long. But there was no time to dwell on the shock. Ryan had made up his mind. He wasn't going to let Emily get away with this. Not without knowing he had the full truth. He had to confront her. He had to make her admit what he had already uncovered. And when that moment came, it would change everything. Ryan's mind was a storm of thoughts as the days following the revelation played out. The tension in their house had only thickened. Emily was still acting the same. Distracted, distant, perhaps more so than before. She continued with her usual routine, but every move she made felt like a performance. Her smiles were forced, her words more measured, as if she was trying too hard to convince him that everything was normal. But Ryan knew better now. Nothing was normal. He couldn't stop thinking about the text. It replayed over and over in his mind. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be there after your meeting. Dylan." He didn't know who this guy was, but he knew one thing for sure. He was the man Emily had been seeing behind his back. Ryan tried to fight the waves of anger and betrayal that rose in him, but they were relentless. Still, he refused to confront her before he had all the facts. Ryan had always believed that confronting a situation with clear evidence was the only way to get the truth. He wasn't going to give Emily the opportunity to deny or manipulate her way out of this. If he was going to confront her, it would be with cold, hard facts that she couldn't argue with. It was a Friday when Ryan decided he couldn't wait any longer. Emily had gone out for one of her work dinners, and Lily was staying at her friend's house for the night. The house was empty, and Ryan had time. He went to the desk drawer where he kept his spare phone, the one he used for work calls and projects. It was a simple old model, but it had one thing: Ryan needed access to a burner number. He had been considering tracking Emily's location for a few days now. The idea of using a GPS tracker seemed invasive, but Ryan was beyond that now. He didn't care. He was a man with nothing but questions and a mountain of uncertainty, and he wanted answers. He could have simply checked her phone again, but he needed something more, something that would give him a clearer picture of where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. With shaky hands, Ryan activated the tracking app. It was simple to set up, easy to use, and Emily never thought to disable it. She trusted him implicitly, a trust he now felt like he had betrayed by setting this up. Still, his moral compass had no room for doubt anymore. There was no going back. As the app loaded, Ryan's phone buzzed again. This time it was a notification from Emily's phone, and his heart stopped. It was another message from Dylan. "Are you coming to my place tonight, or should I come to yours? Either way, I'm counting the minutes until I see you again." Ryan's throat tightened, and the last of his patience snapped. Emily's lies were no longer subtle, they were blatant. And worse yet, she had no idea that Ryan was onto her. This man was not only involved with Emily, but he was also making plans to meet her that very night. Ryan could hardly keep himself from pacing the room. The tracking app beeped again, indicating that Emily's location was now available. He opened the map and felt a twist in his gut as he saw her current coordinates: a bar not far from where they lived. But not a place Emily typically went, not a place for work dinners. No, this place was far more casual, and something about it felt wrong, like a secret meeting spot. Ryan felt a rush of emotions, none of them positive. He stared at the map, the pulsing red dot that represented Emily's phone. His hands gripped the edge of the desk as he tried to steady his breathing. He had to know more. He needed to see for himself what was happening. He grabbed his jacket and slipped out the door without a word. The air outside was cold, but it did little to calm his nerves. He could feel his heart hammering in his chest, each beat reminding him of how deeply he had been betrayed. The drive to the bar felt like it took forever, even though it was only a few miles away. He parked in a lot across the street, behind a few other cars. The bar was dimly lit, its neon lights casting an eerie glow onto the pavement. It wasn't a place Ryan had ever imagined his wife would frequent. He wasn't even sure what kind of people went there. He waited in his car for what seemed like hours, the minutes stretching as he anxiously glanced at his phone. The map still showed her at the bar, though she hadn't moved in the last few minutes. It was getting late, and Ryan had no idea what to expect. Was she with Dylan right now? Was she inside, laughing and holding his hand as though their life together never existed? Then a figure appeared at the door of the bar. It was Emily. Her blonde hair fell around her shoulders, and her face was lit by the streetlights as she looked around, her gaze scanning the parking lot. She seemed calm, almost detached. Ryan's breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, he couldn't move. But then, to his horror, he saw a man step out of the bar behind her. It was him, Dylan. Ryan didn't need to see anything more. The way Emily smiled when she saw him told him everything. The way Dylan's hand lingered on her back as they walked to his car, the way she leaned in closer to him as if nothing mattered anymore. It was all a slap in Ryan's face. His mind spun, and a wave of nausea hit him. The final piece of the puzzle was in place. The woman he had loved, the mother of his child, was not just having an affair. She was in love with someone else. She had been seeing him for months, keeping it hidden from Ryan while acting like everything was fine at home. Ryan sat in his car for a few more minutes, fighting the urge to storm over and confront them right there. He was angry, so angry he could hardly think straight. But he couldn't confront Emily now. Not like this. He needed to stay calm. He needed to plan. As he watched them drive away together, Ryan felt a deep, hollow sense of loss. The man he had been was gone, replaced by someone who couldn't even recognize the life he had built. He had always been a patient man, but now he was no longer waiting for the truth. He had it. The time for patience was over. Ryan turned the car around, headed back home. He wasn't sure what would happen next. But one thing was certain: his marriage was over. The next few days were a blur. Ryan hardly slept, his mind constantly replaying the events of that night. The sight of Emily with Dylan, the way she smiled at him, the way she let him touch her like she belonged to him. It was a slap in the face, and no matter how hard Ryan tried to push the images away, they kept resurfacing. The betrayal gnawed at him, leaving him restless and sick to his stomach. He barely spoke to Emily in the days following the discovery. The casual conversations they usually shared about work, Lily, and their day-to-day lives felt hollow. Ryan wasn't playing along anymore. He couldn't. It was as if everything had changed overnight. He couldn't look at her without seeing the lies, without feeling the weight of her betrayal pressing down on him. But Emily seemed oblivious. She kept up the pretense that everything was normal, even though Ryan knew it wasn't. She didn't seem to notice the cold distance in his eyes, the way he would glance at her phone with barely concealed contempt. Ryan had kept quiet about his discovery, but he was done hiding his anger. He wasn't going to live like this anymore. The truth was out, and it was time to face it head-on. It was on a Thursday evening when Ryan decided he couldn't wait any longer. Emily had come home from her yoga class, her usual routine of a quick shower and dinner preparations. She didn't expect anything out of the ordinary, and that was exactly how he wanted it. Ryan sat at the kitchen table, his hands clenched into fists. He had been preparing for this moment for days, weighing his words, rehearsing what he would say. The rage that had been simmering inside him was now a quiet, steady burn. He wasn't going to scream at her, wasn't going to lose control. But he would not let her lie her way out of this. Emily walked into the kitchen, a pleasant smile on her face as she noticed Ryan sitting there. "Hey babe, how was your day?" she asked, her tone light, as though nothing had changed. Ryan didn't answer immediately. He just stared at her, his gaze cold. Emily seemed to notice the change in his demeanor, her smile faltering slightly. "Ryan," she asked, her voice hesitant. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. "Who is Dylan?" The question was simple, but it hit Emily like a punch to the gut. Her expression flickered, her eyes briefly darting to the side before quickly returning to meet his. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came. Ryan didn't give her the chance to hide. "Don't lie to me, Emily," he said, his voice steady but tinged with a quiet fury. "I know about the texts. I know about the meetings. I saw you. I saw you with him. You can't hide it anymore." Emily's face went pale. Her mouth opened and closed as she searched for something to say. But Ryan could see the panic in her eyes. The shock, the guilt, the realization that she had been caught. It all played across her face in a matter of seconds. "Ryan, she began, but Ryan cut her off. "No, don't try to explain. There's nothing left to explain. I know everything." The silence between them grew heavy, thick with the weight of the moment. Ryan's heart was pounding, but he didn't feel the tears he had expected to come. Instead, he felt empty, like he was watching someone else's life unfold in front of him. This wasn't the woman he had married. This wasn't the person he had trusted with everything. "Why?" Ryan asked, his voice breaking through the tension. "Why, Emily? How long has this been going on? And why didn't you just tell me? What was I to you? Was our marriage just a lie?" Emily looked down, her eyes filled with shame, but she didn't say anything at first. The guilt weighed on her like a stone. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke. "I'm so sorry, Ryan," she whispered. "I never meant for this to happen. It just started. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't want to lose you." Ryan's mind raced as he absorbed her words. It just started. That was all she had to say. How easy it was for her to apologize, to offer a simple explanation. She had been lying to him for months, sneaking around, all while acting like nothing had changed. And now she was sorry. He couldn't believe it. "How long, Emily?" Ryan asked again, his voice low, almost dangerous. "How long have you been seeing him?" Emily looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "It's been 6 months." Ryan's heart dropped. 6 months. 6 months of deceit, of betrayal, of Emily lying to him, of hiding another man in their life. 6 months of pretending to be the loving wife while living a double life. He felt sick to his stomach. "And you thought I wouldn't find out," Ryan said, his voice shaking with anger. "You thought you could keep this from me forever. You thought you could just go on like nothing was wrong." "I didn't want to hurt you," Emily pleaded. "I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. I didn't know how to stop it." Ryan felt a cold rush of realization. Emily wasn't even sorry for the betrayal. She was sorry she had been caught. She was sorry it had all come to light, but deep down, she had no remorse for what she had done. The way she spoke, the way she avoided his eyes, it was all so painfully clear. She wasn't the woman he had married anymore. She wasn't the person who had promised to love him, to cherish him. She had thrown all of that away for someone else. "Emily, I don't even know who you are anymore," Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought we had something real. But you've been lying to me for months, and now you're telling me you're sorry. But sorry isn't enough." The tears in Emily's eyes were no comfort to Ryan. He felt no sympathy for her. The anger was gone, replaced with a deep, bitter sadness. He couldn't keep pretending. He couldn't keep pretending that they could fix this. This marriage was over. He had known that the moment he saw Emily with Dylan, and now it was time to face the truth. "Ryan, please," Emily begged, her voice cracking. "I love you. I do. I never wanted this." Ryan's voice was cold when he spoke. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have thrown everything away for him." Emily opened her mouth to argue, but Ryan cut her off. He stood up and turned his back on her, walking toward the door. "I'm done, Emily. I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Emily stood there frozen, her hands trembling. She had no idea how to fix this, no idea how to salvage what was left. Because deep down, she knew it was too late. Ryan walked out of the kitchen, his heart heavy but resolute. He had no more words for her. There was nothing more to say. The days that followed the confrontation were a blur of emotions, legal discussions, and moments of bitter reflection. Ryan didn't know what he had expected after he told Emily he wanted a divorce, but it certainly wasn't the silence that followed. Emily had begged him to reconsider, pleaded with him to let her explain. But Ryan had heard enough. She had made her choice months ago, and there was no going back now. He spent the first week in a haze, his life turned upside down. The house, once filled with the noise of their laughter, now felt empty and hollow. Emily had moved out temporarily, staying with a friend. She took only a few of her belongings, leaving behind the remnants of their life together. Photos, clothes, the small, personal items that once filled their home with memories. It felt surreal, as if none of it had ever really mattered. Ryan didn't know how to feel. He wasn't sure if he was more angry, hurt, or relieved. All he knew was that he couldn't go back. No matter how much Emily tried to apologize, no matter how much she claimed she loved him and wanted to work things out, it didn't matter anymore. The trust between them was gone. The foundation of their marriage had crumbled beneath the weight of her betrayal. He spent his nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events in his mind. The last few months, the signs that he had missed, the quiet but steady growth of his suspicions, all of it now seemed so obvious. How had he been so blind? He thought back to the texts he had seen, the way Emily's eyes had shifted when she spoke, the moments when she seemed too distant, too preoccupied with something. Someone else. It all made sense now. But knowing that didn't make the pain any easier. Ryan's mind wandered back to the man who had stolen Emily away from him, Dylan. He had done everything Ryan hadn't. He had given Emily the attention, the excitement, the affection that Ryan couldn't provide anymore. Ryan hated him, but deep down he also felt a strange kind of pity. Dylan wasn't the problem. Emily was. It was her decision to cheat, her choice to lie, and her failure to honor the vows they had taken together. Dylan was just a symptom of something much deeper, a fracture that had been growing between them for years, but Ryan hadn't seen it. Despite the anger, Ryan still couldn't shake the feeling that part of him had failed Emily too. They had drifted apart over the years, little by little, and he hadn't noticed. He had become consumed by work, by the constant pressure to provide, to succeed, to keep everything running smoothly. He had forgotten how to be present, how to nurture their relationship, how to make her feel valued. He blamed her for the affair, but part of him wondered if he had contributed to the breakdown of their marriage too. In the following weeks, Ryan made the necessary steps toward ending their marriage. The divorce was inevitable, but it wasn't easy. They had both accumulated assets during their marriage, and they had a daughter to think about. They agreed on joint custody of Lily, though Ryan had been clear that he would fight for full custody if things ever got ugly. Emily seemed to accept that, though it hurt her more than anything else had. Her cries echoed in Ryan's mind for days. She had been the one to destroy their family, and yet, it was Ryan who had to bear the weight of making the final decision. As the legal process dragged on, Ryan felt the strain of it all. It was harder than he had anticipated. The feelings of betrayal didn't fade, no matter how much he told himself that he was doing the right thing. Some nights, when Lily was asleep, he would sit alone in his living room, consumed by bitterness and loss. He had given Emily everything, his love, his trust, his heart, and she had thrown it all away for a moment of excitement for a lie. But as time passed, Ryan started to heal. Slowly, piece by piece, he began to rebuild his life. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the pain would hit him unexpectedly, but he was determined to move forward. He went back to the gym, started focusing more on his work again, and even reconnected with old friends who had been left behind in the years of his marriage. They had always told him that Emily was too good for him, but Ryan never believed them. Now he wasn't so sure. Emily, on the other hand, had a much harder time moving on. She tried to reach out to Ryan several times, but he refused to engage. There was nothing left to say. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Dylan, too, seemed to disappear from the picture. Ryan didn't know if they were still together or if their relationship had burned out. In the end, it didn't matter. Emily's actions had made it clear that she wasn't the woman he had married anymore. That woman was gone, and in her place was someone Ryan no longer recognized. One evening, about a month after the separation, Ryan found himself sitting at a bar, having a drink with an old colleague. They talked about work, sports, and life in general. For the first time in a long time, Ryan laughed. A real laugh, not the forced chuckles he had been giving himself in the mirror. As the night wore on, the colleague asked him if he was dating again. Ryan hesitated, unsure of how to answer. He wasn't sure he was ready. The idea of opening his heart to someone else felt like a betrayal, like he would somehow be dishonoring the life he had shared with Emily. But then, as the conversation continued, Ryan realized that he wasn't betraying her. He was moving on. He was allowing himself to heal, to rediscover who he was outside of his marriage. He wasn't the man who had been cheated on. He was Ryan Turner, a man with a future, a man who had the power to take control of his life again. And that was exactly what he was going to do. In the end, Ryan didn't need to seek revenge or make Emily suffer. Life had already done that for him. The best thing he could do now was to let go of the past, to stop holding on to the anger and the hurt. He would co-parent with Emily for Lily's sake, and he would continue to build a life that was his, one where he could love and trust again when he was ready. As Ryan looked at his reflection in the bar's mirror that night, he finally saw something he hadn't in a long time: strength. He was going to be okay, and that in the end was all that mattered.